So obviously this show is called Mastering Business Growth because we're trying to master business growth. And we do that by speaking to people like yourself, Sam, who are doing very interesting things in business. So please, in your own words, can we start with who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you for having me, first and foremost.
Thank you very much for joining us.
I'm really excited. I'm actually a little bit nervous about this. But yeah, I'm Sam. So I am the Senior Digital Marketing Manager at Samsung at the moment. So I work across both the mobile division and the consumer electronics division. So any product that you can think of at Samsung, pretty much I touch on in terms of marketing. The digital marketing element of what I do, I guess, is the paid social, search, programmatic display side of things. So my role in particular is basically, in a nutshell, trying to get the best return on ad spend through those digital channels with the budget that I have, basically, to drive as much revenue to the business as I can.
That sounds like a lot of responsibility. It's a very, very big job. How did you get there? Where did it all start?
Where did it all start? Oh, God. So I actually did a marketing advertising degree at Leeds Met. So I don't know why I went into marketing, to be honest. Never did at school.
Did it just seem like an adult job? I guess I think some people are doing marketing. Or
Yeah, I think I was sold the dream in the sense that, like, you know, when you think of marketing, you kind of like, oh, big cinema ads and like TV ads,
super
out home,
creative,
like glitz and glam, Emily in Paris. Like
who sold you that dream?
The description,
right.
UCAS or whatever it was.
Uni courses, pick one.
Yeah. Marketing, that sounds fun, yeah.
But I mean, it turned out to be pretty cool. And like in my third year of uni, I did like an internship at a agency. So at the time it's called Cara Leeds. I don't know whether you've heard of it, but it's now owned by iProspect. And I went into digital marketing there. So my first job was in paid search. And that was back in the day. I say back in the day, it was doing like 10 years ago. And that was like very much like the nitty gritty, working on the accounts across paid search on the Jet2 holiday accounts. And I kind of just like loved it. Like I loved the whole, at the time, the agency life. It was fun. It was like, it was a little bit boozy in the agency life. So yeah, I kind of went to that. And then after uni, I got a job in digital marketing for the FDS. I actually bounced around quite a bit. So worked there, went to Asda, down in Leeds, did digital marketing there as well, and then moved over to Lloyds Banking Group, which was a little bit different. It was more campaigns.
Very like a more corporate environment than say Asda and places. Because I mean, I've worked in like fintech, like agency side, like for years.
You've also worked at Asda.
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just on the music and video desk wired. When you used to have long hair, they were like, "We'll whack him on the music bit because he's."
He looks like a goth.
Yeah, basically, it's like he'll do. We'll sell more CDs if you're there. So nothing quite as cool as your job. But yeah, did you find much of a change between again all these big names that you've kind of worked for?
Yeah, I mean, the job itself is quite different. So I moved away from sort of digital marketing, probably more I would describe as campaign management. Probably wasn't for me. Loved the teams, but the job itself probably wasn't for me. But Lloyds, I would say, is very corporate. It's very, it's obviously everything that you do is, it's almost, I don't know, there's just so much red tape around it. Like the FCA, like they have to check everything. It's none of your ads, like you can't be as creative as you want to be at Lloyds, as much as like they are creative and the people that are amazing at what they do. I always felt sort of like a little bit trapped in sort of like what I was doing as a digital marketer. Like even like with paid search copy, for example, like everything was checked to the letter, to the T. You had to have T's and C's, and but you had to fit in like 90 characters, and it was just like impossible to do. Like
it's like on the radio when they speed up the T's and C's right at the end. It's like blah, 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 just so you get it.
Yeah, literally.
I mean, I've the different. Never, obviously, I wasn't like campaigns or anything like that. But I remember a couple, like when I worked at an agency in Manchester, one of their customers was like a gambling company, and you couldn't be seen to promote gambling, and I guess with like banking and things like that, probably the red tape you kind of mentioned. I assume it's like you can't influence people to spend money or do things in a certain way. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, I guess like with what I was doing, it was more like every like T's and C had to be like there. Like you couldn't, like you just basically had to be completely transparent to your customer. But it doesn't work across a lot of marketing channels where there's such like a small amount of space to put all these T's and C's in. And like the argument was always like, well, they can't even see it. Like they can't see it in the T's and C's. So like if anything, it's just hindering like the visibility of like everything there. But they just had to put it in to cover their backs. Like, because like there could be like one person who'd be, well, you didn't mention that your house could be repossessed if you don't keep up with your mortgage payments sort of thing. And it's like, well...
That's awful. Do you know, that just made me think that. It's always blown my mind from a marketing perspective. You get things like smoking companies, and they're doing everything in their power to be like, it's awful, you're going to die horribly. And it's like, how do you get people to buy these things? Or do you just rely on the fact that social pressures will get people in? And then it's like, oh, it's not me. I didn't advertise it, even though you're the one selling it. Have you ever had a job like that where you've had to sell something you're really not allowed to talk about the benefits? And like, how would you go about something like that?
I actually haven't. I think all the brands that I've worked at have always been like quite fun in some way. Like obviously like Lloyd's, there was like a lot of like restrictions around what you could say, but it was still like a fun brand to work at, right? Like they had like in their portfolio, they had Lloyd's Banking Group, they had Halifax, they had Scottish Widows, which I wasn't part of, but the two brands, like they were very different in like the tone, the way that like their target audience and everything. So there was a lot to work with. It was just, everything was just heavily like
regulated.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. But I mean, I think with that, like I know I sound like I'm moaning a little bit about working at Lloyd's, but it's actually like, it's meant that going into future jobs that I've had, I've had to be a little bit more rigorous in like what I do, and like I look at things a little bit more in a different angle and different perspective, and like everything that you do across Samsung, for example, like that's still highly regulated. Like yes, you don't sit there and like recite like full paragraphs like what we did at Lloyd's, but it's everything still has to go through legal. It still has to be approved by legal. It still has to be approved by everyone within the team. And I think I've got more of an appreciation of that and like why we have to do that. Whereas prior to Lloyd's, I remember sitting there actually and just like moaning about like why this had to go through legal, why this had to go through this person. I mean, like I don't get it. Like there's no point. It's just delaying the whole campaign. But like now I kind of just understand it a little bit more. So
yeah. When did you get into Samsung, and did you go straight to the role you're at now, or did you work your way up a bit?
I worked my way up a little bit. So I went in as a digital marketing manager, and then I think I was there probably 3 years-ish, and then moved into a senior role. So very similar role, to be honest.
What is the difference?
I would say you probably think a little bit more holistically as a senior manager rather than like digital. It's kind of more day to day. I think we do still have the freedom as like obviously managers to think more strategically, but as the senior, you kind of expect it to be a little bit more holistic and think more holistically and more future thinking across like each quarter, each year, like how we're going to spend the budgets, where we're going to spend the budgets, that planning side of things, which to be honest I really like. Like I prefer it more than the day-to-day stuff. And
how much responsibility are you given?
I would say quite a bit, to be honest.
Is that scary?
It's a little bit scary. It's a little bit scary. I've got a really, really good manager though, Claire. Yeah. Like she just trusts the team so much, and like she's always there to like support everyone, which I think like massively helps. And like she gives you like all these things to do, and it's like it's almost like, well, she trusts you to do it. And it's quite nice because it's meant like you've had to problem solve, you've had to think of like how to do things, you've had to think for yourself essentially, but you always know that she's there to help you at the same time. So yeah, she's been a really good person to like push me over the past couple of years.
That's really good.
How much of it is creativity versus art? Like which part are you more into? I imagine a lot of reading the data, pivoting based on what the data tells you versus getting creative. What's the overview there?
I would say our role, because we sit more performance marketing, it's more data driven. Yeah. So everything that we do and every decision that we make is based on the data that we get.
And do you ever give feedback to the creative team or whoever it is you're using?
Yeah, we're quite a good sort of like team in marketing. So we have the marketing team who create a lot of the assets for us. We work with them on the strategy and everything, and then by the end of like each campaign, we'll then report back on how things have performed based on like assets or the channel or the platform that we've been using. So we take those learnings into like the next campaign or flagships and that. So it's like a really nice cycle that we've got going on at the moment. Like obviously there are times where the data isn't enough and you kind of just have to do it, but that's fine. It's, I think all businesses have that sort of like political decision that you just have to do sometimes. But
of course, yeah. Well, with such a big role, what is something you know now that you wish you can go and tell yourself 10 years ago when you first got into it? Something that affects your day to day.
To maybe like not stress about like the amount of work that you've got to do across digital marketing. I think like, I don't know, like I think going through your career, you kind of stress a lot about like just doing things perfectly and like not wanting to fail. But actually it's, it's the failures that kind of like get you to where you are now. if that makes sense.
We were chatting with a guy called Lewis last week, weren't we? And he made some really good points about failures are a positive thing. Like you probably wouldn't be the experience that you're getting and turning them into positives rather than stressing about them, like you just said. I mean, things that probably for you and I mean for both of us that we stressed about years ago in different roles and thinking, God, this is the end of the world. And then you look at these stresses now and you're like, well, I get them twice a day now, so why did I go in, didn't do something or spend a day or stress, grow some grey hairs or something when really the bigger picture is it's not affecting anybody, nobody's going to die.
Yeah, I know what to do next time.
And it is what it is. Yeah. So you mentioned about obviously kind of long-term kind of campaigns and stuff like that. Is that kind of, I mean, I know a few people at Samsung, like a couple of like the field rep teams and stuff like that. And every time I see them, they've got a different phone on them that they're showing off and doing different bits. Is it as long-term as thinking, right, the next fridge or the next phone in a year's time, is that the campaign you're kind of planning for now, or how far ahead does that kind of go?
I think it differs depending on the business that you're in. I think Samsung is probably a lot more short-term than most businesses. Like, we're very reactive to the market and we have a lot of product launches throughout the year. So I'll be thinking about Q1 now, but not necessarily Q2, because just basically how the calendar falls, essentially. And we don't really think like that long term. Like, I'd love to. Now, we have a 2025 strategy, but it changes so often throughout the year that it's almost impossible to be able to plan that far ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say like Samsung is probably a lot more reactive than the likes of, say, Lloyd's or Asda, I would say. Like, it's just a lot quicker, which I actually really like. I quite like the madness of like it being so quick. But
what are some of the most effective strategies in direct to consumer that apply across the board for whatever market you're in?
I would say in terms of marketing, like, it has to be one big plan from top to bottom. I think we've made mistakes in the past where we focus so heavily on, like, say, only paid search, for example. A lot of them budgets like plowed into paid search, but actually you need to drive that demand before people are actually going to search something, because no one's going to search something that they don't know, right? And I think we've made that mistake before at Samsung, where a lot of the budget's been put into search and it's just driven no demand off the back of it. So I think like any marketing strategy, you've got to consider everything from the top all the way down to the bottom, like every touch point of like where that consumer will be. So like, you know, you guys were talking earlier about like how do you measure the impact of like a swing in a fountain sort of thing. And it is hard to obviously like measure the impact of that, but you know, attribution's been put in place where we try to measure from that point all the way to the point of purchase. And we do know that like these things out of home or grid advertising or whatever, like that does play a big part in it, because it drives the awareness, it drives the excitement. Otherwise, like anything down here just wouldn't work. So for me, it's like it's a big collaboration between all marketing teams.
Do you know what I'm curious about? Obviously, Samsung is such a massive company, and you kind of think, well, they're going nowhere. People are exactly just going to forget about us. Do you ever feel that way, like you're so confident in it, or is it always a worry that, you know, we could be gone overnight? Because, I mean, you look at BlackBerry, things like that. You think these companies that are just so big, no one's going to forget about them. Is it ever a concern? Like, we need to stay on top of things, ahead of the curve.
I don't worry so much about Samsung being like that. I think we obviously worry about like our profits and our like revenue and targets at the end of the year, but I don't think Samsung's necessarily going to go anywhere anytime soon. And I think their business model, like you kind of learn this like when you first go to Samsung, but just based how reactive they are to the market. So Samsung actually started off as a noodle company. So
what company?
A noodle company, so a ramen company.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
wow.
History.
Do you know, I think I heard something similar, like, was it Nintendo? It was like a corner shop or something?
Yeah,
there's some wild ones, there's some strange ones like that,
Yeah.
I don't know that.
No.
So that was their first like business model, was like ramen. And
that's insane. When was that?
It was way back when it was like probably like, you know, the Korean War. Back then. And then they've just basically like adapted to the whole business model, like the economy and everything across Korea, and like built this entire empire. So they've got so many products now, like, you know, across what I work on watches, tablets, mobiles, buds, fridge freezers, ovens, hobs, hoovers, everything. So I'm not in any risk of it disappearing overnight, because even if like the
these
mobile,
are all things that people
it's not
need
just
day to day. You need to keep your like food fresh, put it in the fridge. Samsung do fridges. Do you know what I mean? These kind of things. I didn't really realize how big Samsung's range was for ages, and it's it's mad.
It is big, but like what I would say is that like we obviously don't excel in every category, right? It's like our mobile division is probably like the biggest, but there are competitors out there who are very, very competitive, and like Apple, for example, like they're huge. Or you have Dyson or LG, that kind of thing. So we still have competition, even though we are pretty big.
Of course, yeah. I heard of a marketing method once called signaling, and it's to do with, do you know what I'm talking about when I say that? You might have a different word for it.
No.
It's something to do with games, movies, festivals, where they'll announce it and get people hyped before they even talk about price or even put it available to buy. And it's something to gauge customer interest. So you'll do it with like, you'll announce like, oh, here's, I don't know, Download Festival, Leeds Fest. And then they'll put a few headliners up and they'll gauge interest, and then they'll like get anticipation built up, maybe build waiting lists, and then they'll release it, put like tickets on sale for 12 hours. Do you guys ever do anything like that?
We do, if you've seen some of our past launches.
I will have passively, but not actually consciously realised it, because obviously I'm a Samsung customer myself. We use Samsung phones, I've got my tablet here and all that. So it must be working on me somehow, but I'm not conscious of it.
I was going to say, so you've never pre-registered with us.
I'm so sorry. No, apparently not. I'm so sorry. I will in the future. I'm going to keep an extra eye out now, just so I know what you've been working on.
Before Sam leaves today, she's going to have us on every list.
What you're doing is working subconsciously on me. So
we need the pre-reg. Just sign up, okay? Yeah, no, we do that. With our past launches, we do try and build the anticipation.
Yeah.
So if you look at some of our past launches, we've had like lead form generations, like pre-registration forms that we'll hound you on. So I'm very surprised that you haven't signed up yet. Like,
maybe I have. I'm signed up to everything. You know,
not even realize.
I've even signed up to things just to see what companies are doing and be like, right, what are you doing next? You know, what are you going to email me? I sometimes will intentionally add stuff to basket and then not buy it, knowing very well I'm going to get a discount code later.
Love that.
Yeah, are things like that anything to do with you and your day to day?
Not so much me. Not the whole basket abandon and give you like extra discounts and everything. I think
it's all
like
retargeting. Whatnot.
Yeah, like we do retarget, but I think sometimes the codes and that get leaked. So our channels aren't necessarily like the most secure channels to do that across. But we do that. I think we do give away quite a bit as well when it comes to like phone launches and things like that.
Yeah. How do you leverage the data that you collect from things and repivot? How do you go about it? What does that look like, that process?
Oh, that's a big process. There's like obviously our team, then there's like the data and analytics team who help us do like a lot of the reporting as well. But we have so many different platforms across Samsung. Like we have all the Google suites that I obviously use, Meta, Instagram, TikTok.
And is it you personally implement some, or do you more like wireframing strategies and giving them to people to implement?
It's a bit of both. Like we work very closely with our agencies, who like they're huge experts in everything that like we do across digital marketing. So those guys will pull a lot of the data for us. We'll obviously analyze that together, and then we'll make decisions together on like what the next step is for any of our campaigns. And I trust them so much to the point where it's kind of like, well, obviously, like if you're recommending this, then this is kind of like what we do. But the data doesn't lie necessarily. It's we use that to back up anything that we do. But yeah, there's a lot of data that comes through Samsung. Yeah. Like it's ridiculous like how many different platforms we have, like to the point where it's kind of like, okay, do we use this data this time or do we use this data? So yeah, but it's a good like process that we've got. And I think the direct to consumer team that I'm sat in, we really do use data to decide what we do next, pretty much. Yeah.
I know I asked you this before we started shooting, and I get it's a broad question, but what exactly is the day-to-day for you? Are you given like we're trying to sell more of these? Or like, how does it work?
I mean, that is part of it.
Is it that simple? Yeah. Sell more of these, come up with something and make it work.
Very much. I think, because it's a bit of both, right? There's like the reactive side of Samsung, where it's like, okay, we need to sell. We need to hit this revenue target. We need to hit the sales target this month. So, me and my team will come up with like the plans and the strategies on what to implement across digital marketing to make that happen. But then on a broader scale, it's kind of more the campaign side of things or the quarterly planning that we do like pretty much every quarter, like how do we spend our budgets? Where do we put our budgets? Should we put in social or put in search, that kind of thing? And it's those kind of decisions that we'll make like on a daily basis. And then outside of that, it's obviously the reporting and the analysing data as well. So yeah, there's quite a few bits to like the day-to-day role, but I would say it's quite different every day.
Does it feel very formal working for a company that big?
No, it doesn't,
Right.
Not really. I don't know whether it's just like the D2C team, but it's such like I would say the coolest team. Obviously.
Wow.
So that's biased.
I mean, you would though, wouldn't you?
Well, obviously. I mean, we smashed targets this year, so we're just a very, very nice team of people. Like, it's quite rare to find everyone in the team so supportive of one another. Like, obviously, like, we bicker occasionally. Like, there's obviously disagreements on like what we do across like our channels or what we do in the campaign or whatever. But I think like we have the support of every team, which is a really nice feeling, because like you can go into like a trade meeting or like any meeting and be like, this is what I want to do. This is, the plans that we've got. And like wider teams outside will support you. They'll help you. They'll, guide you into like making that right decision. So I find that quite rare across a lot of businesses, especially businesses that big.
Yeah.
To have so many people who are almost backing you, like to do well, which is actually a really nice feeling.
I guess as well, with a bigger team, you get to share the responsibility when things work and when they don't.
That is true. That is true.
I was asking about this earlier. So obviously being Samsung, huge company, you've got resources to play with.
Yeah.
In a dream world, do you always get to do things exactly as you want and be like, right, look, we'll play with it, or you're given a budget and you have to tailor something within that?
Yeah, no, we don't get to do everything that I want to do. I think the dream is like, and we get pushed to sort of like think more innovatively. Mm-hmm. But I think in reality, there's actually like a lot of things that we just have to do for like the good of the business essentially. And like, we're just like a small part of like the whole Samsung house, right? It's, there are times where we have to use that budget to essentially spend in a way that will get us that revenue in that month, to get us that revenue as quickly as possible in that month. And it's not necessarily something that we would agree with, but it's the right business direction. So sometimes like we just have to think like outside of our little bubble and think actually from a business perspective, it's probably the right thing to do. So not all the time, but I would say we are quite fortunate in having the opportunity to do a lot of things that probably a lot of companies can't.
I got you.
Do you ever get like, so from what, correct me if I'm wrong, so Samsung always used to kind of launch the flagship phone off the top of my head, like kind of springtime after Christmas, might be different. Apple always used to launch in like September time, like you had your slots. Do you ever find with like campaigns that you've been working on for so long that another brand can have influence to think, right, we need to kind of pivot quite quick and change that? Do you mean if they've done something similar, like features wise, or is it once you're locked in with a campaign, do you just go with it?
I mean, the flip phones, right? I think that's quite a good example of like us market leading in that sort of sector. Like you see a lot of phone like competitors now trying to copy that. There's obviously rumours of like the Apple launching a flip phone. I think they are still rumours, but
that would probably like the iPhone 37 or something. They've not really changed it much, have they?
I have no idea.
Do you know, my wife got a flip phone so she could do a dramatic flip at the end of a negative call. She was like, "Oh, it looks so dramatic. It looks so
I love
cool."
That.
Yeah.
They
She
should
got
like
it.
totally do an advert and just be like,
Yeah, she got it so she can be like, "We're done." Like slam it down. Not that she ever does it, but that was how she justified it to herself. But she was telling me, she was like, "I really want to buy this. I don't know if I need it.
That's why
my
you should
phone's
buy me
fine."
this.
No, she got it herself, obviously. But she was very much like, "I don't need a new phone. Trying to be environmentally conscious. I'll just keep this one that is absolutely fine." But then she did keep telling me out loud and herself out loud, "This is going to look so cool when I can just flip it down at the end of a call." And she got it.
You did a good job there. It worked.
Clearly, it should be the tagline. Slam your phone with style.
Yeah, I know, right? So I was thinking, you're selling products over and over again. You must repeat certain things and go, "Do you know what? That worked so flawlessly." And do you ever just try it from there and just pivot and tweak and find that campaigns are getting more and more successful as you refine the process? And you might find there's just certain parameters you need to change each time based on the product.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
What is working?
You can work for us if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, literally like every campaign that we do now, it's like you take your learnings from your last campaign, everything that's been successful, apply that, and then whatever's left, like, how can you make it better? And I think that's the whole thing with Samsung. It's always like, how do you be better? And like the only way that you can do that is to take the learnings from what's worked well as a foundation and then just build on top of that. So
yeah, so if you have a successful campaign, why start from scratch again when you know what's working?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like we churn out like campaigns so quickly as well. It's kind of like, it just makes sense to like use that data. And like we've got so much data as well, like you may as well just use it. So.
Well, that actually leads on to the next thing I wanted to ask about. So you must have sort of front end campaigns and back end campaigns for existing data you have and existing customers and whatnot. What is the bigger focus? Bringing new people into the ecosystem or working with people that you're already interacting with Samsung?
Depends what team you speak to. I would say bringing in new customers is probably quite a big one. I think, you know, Samsung is a brand that's obviously very well established already. We have a huge base and we still need to nurture that base at the minute, but we're only going to grow if you bring new people into the business. So it's hard to choose between two, I'd say. I think they're both very important because you could lose your base if you don't nurture them, but then you obviously want to bring new people in. So
how do you know when you've lost someone?
Just numbers dwindled.
Fair enough.
Your scores drop. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. How has AI made an impact on the business? Are you guys using that these days?
That's a tricky one from an AI angle. I think we've tested it a little bit across marketing. I think the platforms that we use at the minute probably aren't brand ready for us to use.
Mm-hmm. So it's all still very manual?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I can't speak for every team. Mm-hmm. I think our team at the minute, we've dabbled in it. We've tried to do marketing and advertising with AI. We've tried to be a little bit more dynamic with like some of our ads, but it's not to the level in which like we would want it to be at the moment. But I think it's a learning curve, right? It's, you know, AI is constantly developing. It's still quite a new thing. It's new across Google. It's new across Meta, and it's not quite there yet for us to just let it run. Are
there any tools you're aware of that digital marketers are using with AI where you're thinking, best keep an eye on that in case that becomes something we can use?
I think there's a lot across like the platforms that some businesses are probably using. Like I know Meta have their own sort of AI features where they'll automatically generate like assets for you. They'll make the whole like asset suite a lot more seamless for you. And like Google's the same as well. And you can create new ads across Google with AI and everything, which makes things a lot easier. But Samsung, like, we're so heavily branded that if AI come up with something crazy, like, you know, we just physically couldn't advertise it. So it's, like, say, it's quite regulated from that perspective. So I'd love to use it a little bit more, but we can't trust it enough yet to just let it roll.
Yeah, there's still a lot of things where I'm not willing to take my hand off the wheel. There's all sorts of coming actually for us. So things like AI is great for, let's say you shoot a podcast, getting the transcript. You know, you just upload it and it's like, boom, it's there. And you can use that for reconverting into blogs, generating YouTube titles, stuff like that. And these are things that people had to do manually once upon a time. But then even things like, you know, making, you know, short clips from podcasts, the amount of AI tools around that do that, but they're just terrible. They're not good enough yet.
No,
by a long shot. They just don't know what you're expecting as a human or where to cut it off. Like, right, that's the end of a point. It's an appropriate time. They can't read human inflections and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. That you just can't get that tone through it just yet.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and there's quite a few mistakes that happen through AI as well at the moment, so just couldn't do it right now. But it's cool. I think it definitely will come into the business at some point. Just
totally.
Yeah.
Is much of what you do knowing human nature and how people respond to things, or is it all very much data?
It's more so data in my role, I'd say, but I'd like to think that we put a bit of a human element into that as well.
Because you have to understand why things are the way they are.
Yeah,
like if people aren't responding to things, you'll be like, well, I'll tell you why it was the wrong time at night we put that out, or I'll tell you why this is happening and people are focused on that instead. You'd have to understand why, I guess. Yeah,
exactly. And like it's obviously like knowing like, you know, the cost of living, for example, like people's circumstances and like understanding why they don't want to spend £3,000 on a TV. Do you know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. It's, you know, when people are grilling us on like why sales and revenue's down, it's like, well, have you seen the current like economical crisis at the minute? It's like people aren't going to spend a lot of money on what, you know, products that are deemed premium and have a premium price tag. So there is like a human element to it, and I think you need that as a marketer. Like the data is great, but if you don't have that human touch on it, it's never going to be a good marketing campaign, in my opinion.
So the data is just there to confirm what you already knew, or
essentially
were hoping to know.
Yeah, and I think like good marketing has like emotion in it as well. So,
yeah, of course, yeah. Is there a campaign you recall for Samsung that you're particularly proud of?
The flagship's always like a proud moment for me. I mean, I've done nearly 10 flagships, so it's a lot of flagships, but I'd say they're my most proudest ones because there's so much like effort that puts into them. It's probably the campaigns where we spend a good half a year talking about, whereas a lot of the other campaigns we just try and churn out as quickly as possible. But there's just so much thought that goes behind it, and like the teams all pull together to like make sure that everything happens on time. The activation teams are there like all the time. Our Google teams are there like just on hold for us, and like everyone just pulls together. It's such like a fun day, and like day of impact. Okay, so basically like in Samsung we have this like timer, like it says like 10 days till impact. It's like a full-on countdown. Right. It's very Wolf of Wall Street like on the day, and I love it. I absolutely love it because like we're all sat around the room and like there's a countdown and it's like, oh yeah, the impact's happening. Like there's a big like screen that shows like the whole impact thing. It's like a cinema, that kind of stuff. And as soon as it goes live, we're like, go, 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 go. The on-site team's like, page to the live, and we're like, go, get everything live. And it's just the hype of it is just so fun.
Do you see like revenue coming in, so you can be like, oh, thank God, that's ad cost recovery. That's me safe, you know.
You have another clock and it's just like £1, £2.
They haven't gone that far yet, but don't be giving like the analytics team like any ideas, or the finance team, like, because that probably what the next step is.
I mean, it's not going to be £1 at a time. It's going to be like
100 quid, 200,000,
depending
on what it is. Yeah,
2,000. It's like
I do wonder though, because I'm sure like Google Analytics, like it is real time, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know. I don't do any of this.
It is. Yeah, you can see it come in. Like it might be a little bit of a delay, but like, oh God, no.
Is there just countdown stops, pat on the back time? Yeah, watch this happen. It's like,
God. And then it doesn't get attributed to any of my channels, and it's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
I do remember like, I mean, again, like, because I used to work for O2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'd go into like stores on launch days and stuff, and there used to be like the hype and everything. You'd get queues the night before and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was just an exciting time. You get customers coming in and they just couldn't wait to hold it. Some people were like, right, need to get this home. Some people were like, open it straight away, buzzing about all that. But I remember Samsung always used to, if I'm honest, do better like offers and deals. If it's like, right, if you sign up, you'll get a pair of the buds or something that are coming out on the same day, and that used to cause such excitement for customers. Like, oh, have you got any that we can show you? Oh, have you got any that we can see? It's like, we've not even seen them yet. Actually, the Samsung guy's coming in right now. Ask that person. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, people would be always like, oh, do I get the new iPhone? Do I get the Samsung? And it's like, on paper, it's a no-brainer to go for the Samsung. Do you have quite a bit of involvement with that as well? Like what the deals, like freebies you're getting with the phones and stuff, or?
No, that's a different team who determine that. Like obviously from a marketing side of things, like the stronger the offer, like the better it is for me. But again, what I was saying about like the business perspective, like is that a good thing to have? And then like obviously you speak about OT and that they are direct competitors in some way to like Samsung.com. So it's the balance between us and our channel partners as well, and the relationships that we have with them as well. So there's a lot that goes on that I'm not involved with. But yeah.
Do you ever get a say in the offer? Because obviously every business, every part of it, it's like a big chain. Every part needs to be working together. Do you ever get a say in these things? Like, I'm going to have more success here if we tweak this offer based on that worked last time.
Yeah, actually, we do get the opportunity to do that. Like during our sort of planning stages, we'll obviously report back on like what's worked well from like previous campaigns, and we'll talk about the offers that have worked best for us and almost have like a bit of a wish list on like what we would want to have across marketing. Obviously that wish list doesn't always happen, but it's a really good opportunity for us to basically go to like say the commercial teams or the product teams and say, yeah, this worked really well last time, like if you had this next time, like it could work even better sort of thing because of like X, Y, and Z, and this is like the data that backs it up, etc., etc. So we do have a bit of say, but it's never the final decision when it comes to things like this.
No, of course.
Yeah.
So you know something we were talking about before we started shooting, paid versus organic. Why paid? Why did you choose paid?
Just love the reactiveness of it. Just love splurging, spending money. That's what I love.
Yeah. Do you think it's more effective than organic?
Ooh, I'm going to say no in case Richard ever sees this. It's, again, what we were saying, it's the balance between the two, right? Like, paid obviously has shown like really good performance over time. Like the return on ad spend is very good, and spending money on advertising does work. But you hit almost like a point of diminishing returns where you spend so much money and you're not getting the same like return on ad spend back. So actually, can that money be reinvested in something else? Could it be put into organic, or could organic do that job for you?
When do you know you've hit that point of diminishing returns?
I think when your return on ad spend starts to drop like significantly, but you're still plowing money into it.
But is that strictly an implication that, right, it's not working, or can it just be like a day where it dips, or what kind of things are you looking for there?
I think a consistent trend of it not working very well, or like your revenue and your ROAS stays pretty flat and you're just spending and spending and spending. Like it's an obvious indication that it's just not working. And at that point you'd think, well, should I just pivot to something else?
Yeah.
Or can I actually, the budget that I am spending it on, could I give that to the organic team, or could the organic team pick up, that old age question between branded terms, right? Like, should paid be paying for branded terms, or can organic just pick that up? Because if it's a Samsung term, you'd expect us to be top of page organically anyway, wouldn't you? So there's always that debate, but it's like, do you take the risk and pull out all you spend in brand?
It's messy, isn't it? Because, well, one of the things I said is with organic, it's like, cool, this will work. Now let's just wait 6 months and see what happens. That can be risky. Do you think paid ads is something better suited for larger companies and organizations like Samsung? Or is it something all smaller companies should be doing too?
I think big companies cannibalize it on paid advertising because we have so much budget. So obviously it's a game of like who can bid the highest in some extent, right? So that's smaller companies, like they wouldn't be able to have that budget to blast to compete against.
Like you're ruining it for each other, because now it's like, oh my God, this used to cost me £1, now it's 10.
Yeah. Because
we all pushed each other, kept bidding higher.
Yeah, exactly. Like if anything, it's kind of a little bit more of an annoyance. It's like, it's kind of like, yeah, you are pushing my CPC there. But it doesn't really fare well so much for smaller companies, unfortunately. But I would say small companies need a bit more paid support because that's where they hit like the top of pages, right? Organically, they probably don't have the teams like as big as say Samsung to be able to constantly refresh their site to make sure their quality visits and everything like is functioning well enough for it to be ranked high enough. So yeah, you make my job seem harsh.
It's one of them weird things when you have these conversations, people realise how smart they actually are. Like, actually, do you know what? I do this and that. And,
I just realised, I was like, wow, I'm just like really sabotaging small businesses.
How do you sleep at night?
How do you sleep at night knowing that none of us can afford to advertise?
Literally, I was just thinking, I really lost a trail of thought. I was just like, wow, okay.
God, I'm horrible.
You're a horrible person.
Do you know what? So because ad spend has got so expensive, have you seen it's like pushed creativity in other areas to bring it down? Like I mentioned before, like focusing on the back end of things and how can you nurture customers cheaper? You'd assume it was cheaper anyway to nurture and get repeat sales anyway. Have you noticed any push on different areas since ad spend got so high?
Yeah, I have actually. I think like even if you like focus on paid search itself, like we've had to be a little bit more creative about it. And what's good about Google in particular is that they don't necessarily just do it by like how much you bid. Like obviously it helps if you bid more, but they do it by quality and ad rank as well. So advertisers now had to start thinking about like, actually no, it's not just how much I put into paid search. It's, does my ad sound all right? Is it relevant to that like customer? Is it using like the right language to target that user? So we've had to think a little bit more differently that way. I think a lot of our spend now as well, like, we spend a lot of budget across search and social in particular. I can't really speak for anything like more above the line, but for us, like we've just had to think a little bit more outside the box. Like, target the right consumers, like you're saying, use all the data that we've got to only use the budget across what we know works well. We've dabbled in a few sort of new platforms, which is quite cool. But yeah, I think we've just had to be a little bit more efficient with what we've got recently.
Yeah, of course. Hey, speaking of new platforms, how do you know when something's worth jumping on or not? For example, is it Threads or something that came out recently? I can't remember. I say recently, could have been like last 5 years for all I remember. But things pop up and you go, ignore that, or you might go, no, jump on it quick whilst it's cheap and relatively untapped.
Yeah, I think we're in quite a fortunate position where like partners come to us and they'll be like, oh, we've got this cool new product, we've got this many users that have jumped on the platform, like you should really think about jumping on the platform. And our agencies will, they'll help us decide like whether it's the good platform to use or not. We've actually used a new platform called WeAre8 recently. I don't know whether you've heard of WeAre8. But no, WeAre8's like basically like a new social platform that it basically eliminates hate across like social media. So it does social for good. But what I loved about it was that you could advertise across it, and the budget that you would spend, the proportion of it would go towards charity if your chosen charity.
That's really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's quite cool. So we ran a campaign recently just to sort of bring more awareness to like stamps.com and on why you should purchase on stamps.com. And a percentage of that budget was then given to Mind, the charity. And I think for me, like jumping on platforms that actually have like a bigger purpose than just like driving revenue, for me, it will always win me over. But I guess like from a business side of things, like we choose platforms based on like the amount of consumers we could reach if we think it's going to drive the revenue and the ROAS. And the only way that you're going to know that is if you test it. So we'll put a bit of testing budget behind, say, Threads or Pinterest or whoever is going to pop up. But
yeah. And how far do you push these things? How do you know it's like, right, that's not working now?
We measure it based on like different metrics. So it could be, revenue and ROAS is a big one for us, but also like quality visits and the amount of people who actually come onto site. So we measure it against like other platforms that we do have. And then if it does work, then we'll put more budget into it. Yeah.
Got you. Right, totally off topic. I have a fun hypothetical for you.
Oh, no, okay.
If you could only work 4 hours a week moving forward, what would you do?
4 hours a week?
Yep.
Oh, it's a dream, isn't it?
How would you still get stuff done? What would you do?
What would I do? 4 hours. ChatGPT might have to come into this.
Yeah.
AI
all of a sudden. It's relevant.
Help me out on this one. Oh, I don't know, actually. I'd probably do something like active. Like, I love skiing.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll do like 4 hours of ski every week. Like a ski instructor. Then just operate after, I'm not sure. But yeah.
What about you, Ryan?
4 hours.
It's not a lot of time, 4 hours.
I think whatever I was doing, I'd just have to get very good at delegating.
Yeah.
Leverage other people's time quickly.
Yeah.
As quick as possible. And get funding, I guess.
4 hours is nothing.
It's nothing, is it?
I went to a company that were like, yeah.
You could be like a food tester for like 4 hours.
Food tester, yeah.
That'd be really good. Really, really good. I mean, you mentioned you went for a bacon sandwich before you got here. All I can think about is going for a bacon sandwich.
Yeah, that's a bacon sandwich.
But yeah, I remember companies that were talking about like 4-day working weeks, and I started thinking, could I get everything done that I do anyway? I know obviously most people work an extra couple of hours a day, and it sounds great to have a 3-day weekend, but right now we're so busy sometimes, it's like, I actually could do with an extra day this week.
Yeah.
So trying to get 4 hours.
I flip between that. Very rarely I'll be like, do you know what? I'm just going to work 4 days this week. It's not an active decision. Sometimes it's like I need a day to do like home stuff, like wash my clothes and all that, and just things, like you might go, oh, as well as a vet appointment and this and that stuff you got to do. Then occasionally it's like, I'm just going to work Saturday and Sunday because I've got stuff to do. There's no choice sometimes, is there?
Or when you're waiting on an email or something like that, it's like, great, it's Saturday at 8 o'clock and this is what I'm doing tonight.
So Sam, getting to where you are, would you say it's been mostly hard work or luck or a bit of both?
Ooh, I'd like to think it's hard work.
Yeah.
I think like it's fallen into the right place. Like I think I've like been the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Which definitely helped. But I've always been one of those people, and whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, it's got me to where I am now. But I like to run before I can walk.
Interesting. Tell me about that.
So I always think that like I can do better. I can be better. I can, do a role which I'm clearly not experienced enough to do, but I'll just go for it anyways because, why not? Like, they're just going to say no, right? So
has that ever bitten you in the ass before? Or?
Not really, because it's just like, you apply for a job that you're not experienced enough for. They're just going to be like, no, sorry, like, try again later. Like, it's not like the end of the world, do you know what I mean? But sometimes, like, I apply for jobs, like, just not for the fun of it. I don't think that's the right way of like saying it, but just to get the experience to like understand like what they're looking for, what questions they might ask you, what skills like I'm missing to like get to where I want to be. So that's kind of my mentality, to the point where it's kind of like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And like, I suppose like it did hit a bit of a wall where I was kind of like, oh, actually, maybe I should start walking.
Right.
Like, maybe I should actually like, learn how to do my job before like trying to get to the next thing. But yeah, no, I think that's kind of just how I've got to where I am, really. And like, I've just always wanted to like strive for more.
Of course.
Wanted to like do more, experience more. And like, I've just never been like scared to just try something.
No. Do you know, speaking to a bunch of people over the past few months who are very much like yourselves, it seems to be not that people are confident in a cocky sense, but just very much exactly that. Like, well, what else am I doing? I'll give it a go. I'm not really asked if it doesn't go right. I'll just try again.
Yeah.
It seems to be just built into people. Like, what's the worst that can happen? It makes you think, doesn't it? Like, there's some people out there who are afraid to try all sorts. Like, why? Not much is going to happen.
No, like, I mean, there are like things that like I get worried about sometimes, but like,
of course, yeah.
Like career-wise, though, I'm just like, well, they're just going to say no. And I'll just like, what else are they going to do?
I'll go get a different job. It'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Might as well have a go.
Yeah, because it only takes one person to say yes, right?
Yeah. Did you ever fancy starting your own business, or has it always been just climb the ladder within other organisations?
I've always wanted to start my own business. Like, my parents own their own business. So I thought that would be quite cool. Like, I always want to start my own gin business.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've got like a distiller at home. It's like a little small distiller. And I do want to try and distill my own gin at some point. But I mean, that's quite a big dream. Like, being an entrepreneur is like a very, very difficult job to do. So that's kind of postponed at the moment because I'm quite happy at where I am at the minute.
Is that something you can do on the side and just play about with? And
I guess so, yeah. Yeah. I think like Samsung at the minute, though, like I'm on a nice like trajectory on Samsung. So kind of want to focus on that. But yeah, gin stuff is definitely like, it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, well, being a massive fan of gin, I will be your first customer.
Thanks.
What's next then?
What is next? Oh, maybe my gin company.
Maybe a gin company.
Yeah. Professionally or?
Both.
Just both. Okay. So a couple of months ago, actually, I started flying lessons.
Oh, wow.
Serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've got like 10 hours of like flying a glider under my belt, which is quite cool.
A glider as well.
Yeah.
See,
that's
that'd
amazing.
be more scary, I think.
They are actually, they're quite rickety.
I'm terrified of heights.
Are you?
Yeah. And it's got worse as I got older.
Oh, no.
I was fine with them. Then I was climbing the Yorkshire Three Peaks once, and you get to the top of the first one, and it's like, shit, I look down, like, total out-of-body experience. Like, what am I doing up here? Like, started freezing.
You see yourself.
Where'd that come from?
Okay, I just want to try something I've, like, never done before. Or, like, have any idea on, like, how to do. You know, like, when you, like, approach something, you're kind of like, okay, I've got a bit of an idea, like, how to do it. Like, flying a plane, I was just like, I don't know. I didn't even know whether there was a steering wheel in there. So I was like, oh, no, just give it a go. Just try it. So it was amazing. Like, the first 2 hours I felt a bit travel sick, but after that I was fine. And it was the most amazing experience of my life. Like,
it is amazing.
So cool.
Where does that lead to? Is it something you just do as a hobby?
Well, it's a very expensive hobby,
oh,
but I would like to do it, but yeah, I'd probably save a few pennies before.
Yeah. Well, congratulations there. That sounds incredible. That's not something I was not expecting that.
A lot of people like looked at me like, you're doing flying. I was like, yes, I'm doing flying.
Wow. Yeah. And career-wise, what are you thinking? Just stay at Samsung?
I think so. I'd like to stay at Samsung.
I'm not going to say no.
No, I am not.
Never know.
Actually, no.
To be fair, I would like to stay at Samsung. Like, I would like probably a more global role. So I sit in the UK team at the minute. I would like to experience like globally how that works and how the business operates globally. But yeah, I think that's like a long-term career.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, Sam, we'll call it there. I've really enjoyed that. That was so much fun. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for your time.